everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today I'm going to be doing a very special TBR for a very special readathon, and that readathon is Picture This 2022. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books, and if you've been here for a little while, you'll know that I am never happier than when I have got a great big pile of books next to me. And today I've got a great big pile of children's books, and more importantly, picture books next to me, which is making me feel very, very cheerful. I want to tell you today all about a readathon called Picture This. And Picture This is a new readathon which is the brainchild of Jack over at Spread Bookjoy and Shelly Swearingen. If you haven't checked out these two channels before, please go and do so. They are absolutely amazing and they have absolutely made my month by coming up with a readathon for picture books. If you are new here, I used to be a primary school teacher, and my garage in my house is pretty much full of boxes of children's books, so I had lots to choose from, and I was amazed when I went out to my garage at how many books there were that I had maybe bought as part of a set or something like that I have actually never read. So I'm going to be reading some new to me picture books this month too, which I'm very excited about, and I also want to revisit some either old favourites or books that I haven't read for a long time. I absolutely cannot wait for this readathon. So for the readathon, these two lovely ladies have come up with 6 one-word prompts, so it's very open and very flexible. And today I thought that I would show you my TBR. I'm also going to show you some potential TBR that I don't think fit the prompts, but I would like to get to anyway, and as they're picture books, why not? I should be able to squeeze them in. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you some recommendations for this wonderful readathon. So if you don't know where to start with picture books, please do stick around. The 6 prompts are friendship, green, home, quiet, red and space, and I am going to hopefully show you something for each of those. Let's just go for it. For the friendship prompt, I have 2 different options for myself, and they would both be rereads. The first thing I really wanted to talk about is the Frog and Toad books. So this one's Days with Frog and Toad by Arnold Lobel. I've also got here Frog and Toad Together, Frog and Toad All Year, and this one's actually not related, but it's other little stories called Mouse Soup. These are all by Arnold Lobel, and I think technically starting with these is not the best idea because I don't think they are maybe as picture booky as everything else I'm going to show, because these are obviously books for when children can first start to read by themselves, and the series is called I Can Read. But these are lovely stories and they are illustrated beautifully, and I think Arnold Lobel is just an amazing author. And before we go on, I just want to mention that he also wrote one of my favourite and most apt poems ever, which goes like this: books to the ceiling, books to the sky, my pile of books is a mile high. How I love them, how I need them. I'll have a long beard by the time I read them. I'm very fond of Arnold Lobel, and this is definitely a childhood nostalgia. So I'm going to read at least one of these books for the readathon because I've been meaning to reread these for ages. So I'm very excited about those. Frog and Toad are a lovely little pair of companions, hence why I have chosen them for the friendship prompt. My other choice for the friendship prompt is a bit different. This is not actually a book about friendship, but it's a book that reminds me of friendship because this was given to me when I left my teaching job, and it was given to me by one of my best teaching friends. This was just such a perfect present, and such an emotional present, because she bought me a beautiful special celebration edition of Oh the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss, and it has a lovely message inside the front from my friend. So I'm not going to show you that, but I'll show you some of the mad pictures of Dr. Seuss. So I'm really looking forward to a reread of Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss, and it's probably actually only going to be the second time that I've read this. That's my other one for friendship, which is a bit of a strange choice, but really, really looking forward to this one. And Dr. Seuss is famous for his rhyming, and on the back here it says, "Congratulations, today is your day. You're off to great places, you're off and away." And I think this will be absolutely wonderful to read. So the second prompt was green, and as soon as I heard this prompt, I knew which book I badly wanted to reread, because again, this is a book that I've probably only read once, and I bought this right at the beginning of my teaching career. And this is The Wolves in the Walls by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Dave McKean. And I've just seen it includes a CD read by Neil Gaiman, which I actually have never listened to. But the story behind The Wolves in the Walls is that when I went to my interview to get onto my PGCE, my teaching qualification, we had to present a book that we would, and how we would use it with a group of children. I presented a book called Mr. Wolf's Pancakes, but this was presented to the group, The Wolves in the Walls. It was a controversial pick. My thoughts were, that is terrifying. I would not be able to use that with the age range of children I'm thinking of teaching. But I think maybe this would work better in a classroom with a group of older children. So yes, but it has a very distinctive green cover, and this is a story about a little girl called Lucy, and she's sure that there are wolves in the walls of her house. And as everyone says, if the wolves come out of the walls, it's all over. But her family doesn't believe her. And then one day, the wolves come out. But it's not all over. Instead, Lucy's battle with the wolves is just beginning. And so this describes the book as a delightfully scary, strange and hilarious romp from the acclaimed author of the best-selling Coraline, with illustrations by the brilliant Dave McKean. So I'm really, really looking forward to a reread of this. After that interview session, I immediately went out and bought a copy of this book because I was so intrigued by it from the presentation that I had to read it for myself. So although I have read it, I've never actually used this with a class of children. I'm really looking forward to rereading this. Now, the third prompt is home, and for me, home, as you know, contains a cat. So I've actually picked a book about a cat here. And I've picked 3 books about Mog, and the reason I've got 3 is because these are the 3 Mog books that I have not yet read. I read quite a few Mog books in childhood, and if you check out my top 10 favourite picture books of my childhood, I'll link that video up here. Mog the Forgetful Cat is one of my all-time favourites, and I also showed Mog's Christmas in one of my Christmas videos because it's my all-time favourite Christmas book. And Mog is a very silly and forgetful cat, and a very famous cat. And Judith Kerr wrote these books and illustrated them, and she wrote a lot of books about Mog. And I never actually discovered 2 of these until a couple of years ago. And my mum bought these in a charity shop, and I actually ended up, I think it was right at the end of when I was teaching, and I never actually got to use them, and I've never actually read them. So we have Mog on Fox Night, which I will probably read this month, and we have Mog's Bad Thing, which says Mog did a bad thing. She didn't mean to do a bad thing, but she was upset. Any cat would be upset if her garden suddenly disappeared, but she made her family proud of her in the end. So I don't know what Mog's bad thing is, and I'm quite intrigued to find out. Now, the third book about Mog, I've owned this for a long time. This is, I believe, my mum's book, but I don't think she ever read it to us. And I haven't been able to read it because this is a book about bereavement. This is Goodbye Mog. And Judith Kerr eventually, after many years of writing about Mog, wrote a book where Mog sadly passes away, and I don't think I can handle this book, so I'm glad I've got the other 2. But if I feel brave enough and emotionally strong enough in the month of April, I will attempt to finally read Goodbye Mog. This is supposed to be an excellent book to use with children to talk about bereavement, especially the loss of a pet, but I haven't actually encountered a situation where I've used it or read it. So Goodbye Morgue by Judith Kerr might get read. Now the next prompt was quiet, and this is the one I found trickiest, but I really didn't want to do a Picture This Readathon where I didn't read something by Janet and Alan Allberg. I think that their work is absolutely legendary in the world of picture books, and they were a husband and wife. Alan Allberg is still writing. Janet Allberg tragically passed away, but she illustrated many books with Alan Allberg. So this one I don't think I've read for many years, and I probably only read it once because this is for slightly older children and it's got quite a lot of text. So if I get time in April, I would really like to reread Jeremiah in the Dark Woods by Janet and Alan Allberg. I can't actually remember what happens in this, but it says, this is a story about 3 bears, 7 dwarves, 5 gorillas, a frog prince, some sleeping beauties, a wolf, a dinosaur, a mad hatter, a steamboat, 4 firemen on a fire engine, a crocodile with a clock in it, a large number of beanstalks, and Jeremiah, Obadiah, Jack Norrie Jones and his grandma's jam tarts. So I do have a vague recollection of some of this, but not all of it. It sounds to me like Janet and Alan Allberg have carried on their tradition from their famous book Each Peach Pear Plum of borrowing from our most beloved fairy tales and nursery rhymes to create excellent books. So I'm really looking forward to a reread of Jeremiah in the Dark Woods, which is something that I definitely haven't read since childhood, and it was probably read to me in childhood, so probably haven't read it for myself before. But it has lovely illustrations, as with all Janet and Alan Allberg books. Yes, and maybe that's not a very quiet prompt, but I thought the woods can be quiet. The other book I wanted to show you for the quiet prompt is The Bog Baby by Jean Willis and Gwen Millward, and I bought this when I was doing my PGCE as well, when I was doing teaching practice, and I noticed it's actually signed by the author, which I didn't really realise, even though it's got a sticker on the front saying signed by the author. Didn't know I had a book signed by Jean Willis. And this is a really fun book, but I think I've only read it once. And it says on the back, do you believe in bog babies? When 2 small sisters go fishing to the magic pond, they find something much better than a frog or a newt. They find a bog baby and decide to make him their secret. I won't tell if you won't. Gwen Millward has beautifully illustrated this book. I love the look of the bog baby, and the pictures are just stunning. So I may reread this month. If I don't, I highly recommend reading this book. And yeah, it has some beautiful illustrations in there. And I picked it for quiet because they're going off to a quiet magic pond in the woods. I don't know why I associate woods with quiet, but obviously I do. The next prompt was red, and I've picked a book that is red. I have, I think, 3 Lauren Child books on this pile, none of which I've actually read, and that is because I absolutely love Lauren Child's Charlie and Lola series, and ended up buying a few sets of her books. And some of these books, which are picture books for slightly older children, I didn't read them with a class, so I ended up not reading them myself. This one looks like it would have been a wonderful book to read with a class, so I don't know why I never did. And it's called Beware of the Storybook Wolves by Lauren Child. And you can see Lauren Child's a very distinctive illustrative style on the front here. And this was the winner of the Smarties Book Award 2000 bronze medal, and winner of the Kate Greenaway 2001 award. This says, for a real thrill, try reading Beware of the Storybook Wolves. It will scare your socks off and tell you exactly what to do if the wolves ever escape from your storybook. So I'm getting a bit of a theme here of wolves escaping from things, but yeah, I've never read this one, so I'm looking forward to doing so. More Lauren Child in a minute, but for the prompt of space, I've chosen Space Dog by Minnie Gray. And I've chosen this because when I was teaching in reception, I used a wonderful book by Minnie Gray called Toys in Space, which I'll show you in a moment. And that led me to buy Space Dog by Minnie Gray, but I didn't end up using it with the class because it was a little bit old for them. and I didn't end up reading it myself, I don't think. Yes, Space Dog looks like a wonderful book about space, and it says, "In space, no one can hear you bark." The really unique things about mini grey books is that they have lots going on the pages. Like sometimes they are quite straightforward picture book type thing, and at other times they almost look like a comic strip. I really recommend these, and I'm looking forward to reading a new one. I now have a few books that I haven't read that are by favourite authors where I've read other books by them, and these I would like to fit in if I can. So we have two more by Lauren Child. We have That Pesky Rat and Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Book, both of which I haven't read. I got them in sets and didn't read them. This one is about a rat, and it says, "Sometimes when I'm tucked into my crisp packet, I look up at all the cosy windows and wonder what it would be like to live with creature comforts, to belong to somebody, to be an actual pet." The funny, touching tale of how a pesky street rat finds home sweet home, from the creator of the Clarice Bean books and I Will Not Ever, Never Eat a Tomato, Lauren Child. Now, I've just realised that this would be ideal for the prompt home, so I'm now going to refile it under home and definitely read it. I might get to this one if I have time, and that is a story of a boy who fell into a book. If you were going to fall into a book of fairy tales probably would not be your first choice, because in every story there is always a wicked this and evil that, or a hungry somebody. It could only happen to her, but child star of that thrilling tale, Beware of the Storybook Wolves. So this is the sequel to Beware of the Storybook Wolves, and I would love to get to this as well in April. Another author who I've absolutely loved during the time of my teaching career is Julia Donaldson. She very often collaborates with Axel Scheffler, the illustrator. One of Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler's most famous collaborations is of course The Gruffalo and its sequel. I have got two books here that are written by Julia Donaldson and illustrated by Axel Scheffler, neither of which I think I've ever properly read, and I've got one by Julia Donaldson illustrated by Karen George. This first one is Tabby McTat. We all know that I love cats, so this looks like a good one. I think this was one that my mum got and passed on to me. This one, Charlie Cook's favourite book, sounds like a great book about books. I've not actually read this one either, but I hear it's very good. The last one, both this and the Charlie Cook's favourite book, I got in a big pack of Julia Donaldson books, other ones of which I have obviously read and are a bit more famous, such as Monkey Puzzle, Room on the Broom. But this one is called Freddie and the Fairy. I've never actually read it myself. And this one is about Freddie is delighted when he meets a fairy who offers to grant his every wish. But Bessie Belle can't hear very well and all Freddie's wishes come out wrong. Whatever can they do? I like the style of illustrations by Karen George. It looks really beautiful. So that's another one I would like to get to if I get time. That is a big stack of picture books to get to in April. Luckily, picture books take not very long to read, so I should be able to fit lots of them in, and I'm very excited to do so. I have got for you a few recommendations. Right, for the friendship prompt as a recommendation, I've got another book about cats. This one's called Millions of Cats, and the reason why I would recommend this one is because this book was published in 1928, and this is the oldest American picture book still in print. And it's really interesting because this author and illustrator, Wanda Gaig, was a artist, author, translator and illustrator, and she was a noted printmaker, and she was really a pioneer of the integrated picture book form. So you can see these wonderful pictures which look a bit like prints, and this is a really lovely book about millions of cats, about an old man who goes off in search of the perfect cat for his wife who would like a cat as a companion, and he can't choose. He ends up coming home with millions of cats, and the cats all end up in a big fight. So yeah, this is a really fun picture book, and if you wanted to read something this month with a bit of history to it, then why not make it the oldest American picture book still in print? For the home prompt, I've got a couple of recommendations, and one is a very famous author and illustrator who has recently sadly passed away, and that is Shirley Hughes. And this one particularly reminds me of home because this is an evening at Alfie's, and in this one Alfie and Annie Rose have a babysitter and the house springs a leak. So Shirley Hughes's trademark everyday sort of pictures, her depictions of family life and everyday are really on show here. Here's the babysitter reading Noah's Ark to Alfie. Alfie and Maureen discovering a leak in the house. It's just a wonderful picture book, and if I recommend that you pick up one of my favourite author and illustrators of picture books of all time this month, it would be Shirley Hughes. I also have here the big Alfie and Annie Rose storybook. This one has a date in the front. This was given to me on my third or fourth Christmas in 1988. So this contains various stories about Alfie and Annie Rose. And I'm sure I've had this read to me many times, but I haven't sat down and read that myself, so that would be a potential option for me to have a look at as well. But I do highly recommend the Alfie and Annie Rose series by Shirley Hughes, and they would make great books for the prompt home. Coming to more up-to-date books, I think that this would be a good book to read for the prompt quiet, and this one, it was a bit of an impulse purchase, and it's called It's a Book by Lane Smith. It's a Book involves these two characters and their conversation about a book which this monkey character is reading. And the other little character asks many questions about the book, such as how do you scroll down? Do you blog with it? Where's your mouse? And so on. I really enjoyed this book as a bit of a depiction of, I suppose, modern times and how not everything in the world has to be about technology, and this book's a lovely reminder of that in lovely illustrated form. Would be good for looking at with somebody who is maybe very fond of technology. I haven't read it very often, but I do recommend it. Now, for the space prompt, I have multiple recommendations. The first one I mentioned for a book that I was going to read by Minnie Gray for the space prompt. But if you were going to get only one Minnie Gray book for space, I would highly recommend that it is Toys in Space. Toys in Space is a masterpiece. It says that on the front here, a quote from the bookseller, but that is actually true. So the premise of this is what happens when you leave your toys out in the garden at night. They get beamed up into space, that's what. Meet the cowboy, the wonder doll, the dinosaur and all the gang as they travel to the stars and help out one lonely alien along the way. In the beginning of this book, the toys get left outside one summer's evening and the sky grew dark, and this is one of my favourite illustrations in all of children's books. We have a page that says, the toys saw this. Everyone was quiet for a while. At this point, the rabbit asks the other toys for somebody to tell them a story. And the Wonder Doll begins this story. So we have a story within a story situation. And I have used this book in reception, but it definitely has a lot of layers that reception age children didn't get at all, but which were very enjoyable for the adults. So at times, again, with Minnie Gray, we have an almost comic strip-like pictures, and at other times we have much bigger pictures and they meet an alien who is called the Hoctopies, and this is just a wonderful book. I cannot recommend this book highly enough. If you have time to go out and find this for this readathon, I would say do it, and you won't be disappointed even as an adult reader. There's so much to enjoy in this book, and if you want to read it with your children, I have read this to children of 3 and up, but it will work even better with children of maybe 4, 5, 6, even older would probably enjoy this story because, as I say, there's a lot of layers to it that younger children won't get, but they still might enjoy the story anyway. That one is a high, high recommendation. Another recommendation for space, and I may read one of these myself, is the Dr. Zargle series by Jean Willis and Tony Ross. And I have here in my pile Dr. Zargle's book of Earthmobiles, which is about vehicles, Dr. Zargle's book of Earth Weather, Dr. Zargle's book of Earth Tiggers, which is all about cats. There is one about Earth Hounds as well, which is about dogs. I don't seem to put that upstairs. And Dr. Zargle's book of Earthlets, which is about children. And these books are hilarious, particularly for adults, because they are about this alien, Dr. Zargle, and what he tells his group of students about these different Earth phenomenon. So, for example, good morning class, today we're going to learn about Earth Tiggers. Earth Tiggers are made of furry material. This does up underneath with pink buttons. So these are hilarious books full of an alien's misconceptions about Earth and its things. I think my favourite might be the Book of Earth Weather, but they are all very, very funny. Yeah, I really enjoy these, and they have Tony Ross's sort of trademark illustration style. Here's one about different Earth vehicles. Yeah, they're brilliant. And at the end of each book, Dr. Zargle takes his class off in disguise to visit Earth, so to practice what they've learned, which is always pretty funny as well, because again, the joy of these books is that you can see in the pictures hilarious things that add to the actual text itself. That brings me to the end of a very large stack of children's picture books, and I am extremely excited for Picture This 2022. If you're joining in, please do let me know in the comments and let me know what you think you might be reading or whether you've picked up any recommendations here. If you would like to see more picture book recommendations over the course of the month, let me know in the comments down below, because I absolutely love talking about picture books, as you can tell. Thank you for watching today. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give it a like. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. There will be another TBR to follow, which will be the other things I will be going to read in April. But I thought I'd start off with this one because it makes me feel so cheerful. So thank you, Jack at Spread Book Joy, and thank you, Shelly, for coming up with such a fun readathon. If you think you will pick up a picture book this month, I'd urge you to do so, and please do let me know in the comments down below about your favourite picture books and any recommendations you may have. And I'll hope to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.